Yeah.
Alberto, did you want to start with the explanation, or should we do it afterwards? Afterwards, no? Your microphone is off. Your microphone is still off. Okay, I'm just starting then.
I don't think it's necessary. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Mariana came with the question last time, like, what's the next step? And we considered about like how do we do the next step, and we want to do it in a format like that is including all of the people that are constructing this with us, since we wanted to go this next step also in maybe the relation that we are all having. That's why I prepared a small workshop, or more like a model that we can work on, and I'm gonna explain it to you quickly. I was hanging out again. Oh, I'm starting with Egypt stuff again. Yeah, that's cool. This is I don't know, like if the streaming is working. Can you see the picture of the temple right now?
Yeah. Yes.
I kind of were astonished by this one video, because it is showing a thing that the Egypt's temple have that maybe a bit similar, or something that we can learn from, since this is not only a religious place, it's also a place of knowledge, and you can see it has a wall. It's kind of a fortress itself, and the very interesting thing about it is that the temple itself is kind of the information holder. So when we coming to the gates, the portal itself is already pages of books. And as you can see, each space inside of the temple is used for inscriptions, for knowledge holding, and makes that knowledge so accessible that we now, 6,000 to whatever thousand years later, still can access that information somehow. So in this point, the temple itself is not only a space to go, it is also the archive himself. That being said, I made a small graphic. And I wanted to start with 3 different categories. One is, in our examples, I'm trying to describe what we are doing right now. And what we are doing is we are meeting in a gathering place, which is now in the middle, which could be like a Zoom meeting. But to come there, we need kind of a portal. I like to call it that way, since there are many different ways how to come inside of this. Like, we can be part of the talk via a portal like Zoom, or we can just maybe watch it while we are on Twitch and just be just watchers and not participants. And whatever we do, whatever we produce, all of the presentations we have, or the open archive and all the links, they are kind of a medium. So they text, video, links, and whatever. And then I try to map out what we are doing right now. We're having right now we're having these gatherings here in Zoom that can be watched also by Twitch. And then also we have like all the media that we have right now on Slack and stuff of that we put into this archive, this open docs, that we can now access over the web page. Also, we have some of the videos that we already made that you can watch over YouTube. So we are having like some groups. We're having a group of people who are participating, which is represented by blue. We have a group of co-creation, who are the people who are with us, the space holders, space keepers, and taking part in the system. And we have just the observers and the consumers, or however you want to call them, that are just like looking at it from the outside. So my proposition would be to come in the workshop mode, that we talk about these different spaces that maybe could be added, and how we could more rearrange it to something that is also maybe a little bit more sacred or holy, since here are not like many entry points or whatever, and it also makes it more structured, and that way more sustainable. And that being said, I just started with like a small proposal so you understand maybe what I mean. Since now we are always just sending out a link and you're just coming in, there's no real like purity gate. Like we talked a lot about purity, and for me, before entering a space, some kind of purity, like putting your shoes off or whatever, is a ritual that we all do. And maybe we can also think of a ritual, maybe the reading of rules or whatever, that is giving you the access to the space, since we are all agreeing quietly on maybe the same values, but it is always more powerful if we have something like that. So there would be, in front of this gathering channel, there would be like a portal that brings you into a room, like a medium, which is filled with the purpose of this temple, the guidelines, and the behavior that you have to show. And then also when we have these gatherings, like in an optimal situation, maybe we are at one point more than 10 people, 15 people. And what I always think is that in big groups, bigger than maybe 5 or 6, it is not so easy to talk in that every person is saying something. So maybe we could also think about new formats where there will be, from the big gathering, smaller rooms that you can go to have a quick talk. Maybe there's like a discussion topic and we want to work on something like new concepts of how our temple can be pure, what are the guidelines, and we go for 30 minutes into small groups and discuss. And then we gather back and each group is showing what they're doing, like normal formats that you're doing also in workshops, but digitally. And here the public will be also invited over YouTube, I would propose, if that would be interesting for us, since YouTube is right now hosting most of our other content, so we are not having too many different portals. And there's still this open archive from the webpage, which then will be feeded by another medium that we all have access to, which I would, like in the temple, here analogy would see as a sanctuary. So we have like the most deepest part of the temple where the knowledge is based, and if you then group this into groups, you can again see that there are like, it's like kind of a machine where in the front something enters and then it's being refined and then made to somewhere what of quality that it then can be made public. And that would be somehow my proposal. And to all give you a better picture of how that could manifest, I was looking for other tools that could make all of this possible without complicating it too much, not having 6 different Zoom meetings and then going back into one and having all of these links and juggling around. Because in the gaming community, they are working since a long time on having digital communication tools, and one of them, which is really strong, is this one. It's called Discord, and it is a little bit like a project management tool combined with with whatever Zoom is, like a meeting conference tool. So instead of, I think you're all somehow with any of the digital programs familiar. Somewhat, there are channels where you can write text, like in this way. I made this structure that I just showed you. I made it like this. You start here in Discord. This is your tool, your portal. You go inside. The first thing that you see is the entry, the guidelines. And if you then look in Discord, you see there's this entry, and there is a bot telling you the rules of this place. And you could then add this and change this, or together we find whatever the entry point needs to be, maybe a riddle that is also being asked. And then this person is agreeing by writing a command, like saying just question mark agree. And by that, that's the very important part. As you can see here on the left side, persons can get like roles. That means that we can define different roles, like which collective we are in, and also what kind of, like how far deep we can go inside. So each room can have different entry points. Like there's maybe the sanctuary here on the left side, you see where the archive is. You can first edit and do stuff in there as soon as you are like somehow being granted that right, but it's still like each person which has not been granted rights or whatever can just come inside of this channel and take part in the meetings. So it's kind of like Zoom. You can just go in also for free. There's no fee. And then at that point, when you are saying agree, you get all of these rights, and then all of these other channels are being open to you. And for me, that would be the plus side on this one, is that whatever is written there like how you say like everything that's written here, it stays here. Instead, in Zoom, everything that we write in the channel, it just, like, the meetings are always like gone. And I like this idea of whatever we do will be kind of like this temple. The Egypt temple will be written on the wall, and then the next person writes the next stuff underneath it. And out of that, we can go inside a temple, read the walls, and create stuff out of that, whatever that will be in the end. For me, this would be kind of a, yeah, like a creative pool of ideas and the talks and the discussions that we had. Yeah. So that is everything what I proposed. Like it's not like I just thought about how to structure it, and I just like made this kind of system so I could understand myself how it would look like, but it's not like set that this has to be like that. I just wanted to show you in a manifestation how we could develop by using different tools. Yeah, maybe there are questions in the beginning.
Very good.
So it was clear. Well, what do you think of it? Like, do you have any comments? Is it too complicated? Is it the way it is? Like,
sorry. I think I like the idea. However, it might get a bit tricky because when you put these tasks, little tasks, to people to just have access, I mean, we probably will do it, but maybe I mean, some people would just be like, yeah, okay, no, I don't know. Might be that because of the little tasks in order to enter, they might feel already like, oh, it's too much work. I'll just.
But what is the task bigger right now than in Zoom?
No, I think you just mentioned something about solving a riddle or doing some sort of thing to enter. So that's what I mean. Which I like it because it's a bit of a game and it's nice. But I mean, that's the pro, but maybe a bit just an observation is that this might be a bit, yeah, I don't know, too much for some people, and they will just feel that they don't want to continue, or like they don't want to make the effort, you know what I mean?
But do you want people who are not able to make like a small effort inside of this maybe sacred space?
Yeah, no, not, yeah, no, I mean, I see that point, but
yeah,
I mean, I guess depends.
I think also maybe the conversation got a bit too technical on the technical side, and I think it's more about the conceptual side that it's interesting to talk about. So even though that Marcelo, you know, both names for whoever calls him, but we were gonna try to call him Javi. Yeah. Anyway, the conceptually interesting part of that is like, how does a temple work? No, like before, people just congregate in an open space, and they would start to, by the activity, to start building walls, you know? So in this sense, it's also interesting, like we have this idea of a kind of a temple situation we want to construct, and we want to act according to how it would be a normal life, you know? So until now, we would say that we just had a space in the mountain where we congregated, that was Zoom. And right now we're going to try to put the walls, you know? So, and yeah, maybe Javi went a bit technical, but it's more like possibilities, you know, like big possibilities. And instead of saying this is the way it can be, because for now we just have yeah, we would be like architects and designers, you know, and through our behaviors or things we do, we start constructing these rooms. So maybe it's a bit complicated to understand the technicality of it, but if we like maybe just see it as the concept of it, I think it's kind of interesting. How is it that we are building like in real life, you know, the walls and the stones, and for now we don't know where the main room is. We don't know if there's two main rooms. We don't know if maybe at the end of the day we only have one main room because we don't need an extra chapel or, you know, stuff like that. So I kind of like it because it like I think one thing that Javi said that is interesting is that we start to give this materiality to it, you know, even though it's in the digital realm. Like it's no longer this meeting that disappears, and this tool allows us to like make an archive. I don't know how you say it correctly. Archive. And it's kind of interesting that that like he says, I also find that super interesting that it's always there, you know. We can go back to it and check out who wrote what, and we can start to build this from scratch.
Yeah, that's definitely nice that you will really have like a virtual structure somehow. Yeah. I do appreciate that. Yeah.
But yeah, we also discussed that it's getting technical, and of course, yeah, like anything that is just taking 2 steps more than normal, obviously people don't want to do it. But the cool thing is, like, we only need a committed, you know, like in a church, you only need a committed group of attendants, and with those persons, we can kind of build it, you know. So, and I also like that it's not a big group still, you know. So I think it's kind of cool for taking these design decisions.
So my biggest thought was just to like look what is out there. And I was talking with my little brother who is a gamer, and he showed me this tool which is in the same time being like kind of Slack or like this program management tool, and on the other side it's also like a conference tool in a way. Like they use it to game with each other, and it's mostly game servers that they put there, but you can create your own server, and you can make that thing do stuff. Like you can have small bots in there that like read every link that is posted and write it in a Google Drive without us doing it. So everything that we write in this one channel that says like archive for links, then you write a link, and then it's being directly put in a Google Drive and put like matched, and then that could somehow feed our open archive docs file. What I'm saying is that these possibilities, and maybe even if you don't like understand how they work, like I like how to find out how they work, and mostly I find it out, and it's kind of easy since the tutorials are out there and whatever. But this is making this digital thing really digital. Otherwise, it's just a room that we're inside. And a small anecdote to that: in the digital age, most of the construction, like car creators and whatever, their productivity was doubling and quadrupling over the last century, and mostly in planning, not century, sorry, 20, 30 years, but in like planning facilities like architects and whatever, the productivity stayed the same because they used the computer the same way as they used paper. So the only thing that they got with digitality was maybe the undo function. Otherwise, right now there's this big movement of business integrated modeling where they where they try to make these models also intelligent and really using digitality to push to borders that you could have not been before.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Hi. I would love to speak up a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Let me introduce myself quickly. I'm Leslie. I've been trying to use that, but maybe I'm not sure how. Sometimes I'm put up my hand, but I can't see it, so maybe it didn't work. I'm excited to be here. I'm part of the Queering Corona Crisis Collective group that will speak tomorrow, no, next week. And so we tuned in, and it's very exciting to hear about the ideas that you said. I heard about you before, but I'm tuning in now. So, and it's interesting to see how and to conceptualize something, how to gather knowledge and to yeah, in a creative way. But as a person who's working currently on a way to queer the perspectives on Corona crisis, let me point out already at this point, but I do see a need to queer your concept of a temple. Starting out with the concept of purity, which has been probably since the age of humanity, been a way to exclude females who are menstruating from sacred spaces, and some other hierarchical things. And it's lovely to be in touch about this, and I'm really looking forward to further discussions. I just felt really like the urge to already mention that, but it's very interesting.
Actually, we had a very deep talk about the purity topic and how it is excluding and including, and we kind of use that terminology not in the maybe sense that you right now use it, since that is also what we came to the point that this is the excluding part of it. We were more thinking about how what is maybe purity of mind. What is maybe being when you enter the space that is here, we have some open communication rules. We are nice to each other, but we also listen to ideas that are maybe not ours, and maybe also against ours. And this would be for me some kind of this new picture of this border. Like when you enter the space, there's something that you need to agree on.
So let me tell you my idea. For me, this is what brings it to mind. For me, it does not. Yeah. But I get it, and I thought.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, also the concepts that we have been talking about, purity and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that we are centering the whole project on kind of this concept. We have been gravitating around many different concepts. There are some. At the end, we do have to discuss what is purity and what does it role have in whatever we want to do, because we consider the temple the sacred space, no? And what does it mean to be sacred? Then comes other definitions into play. So the idea is that we want to build these definitions. Doesn't mean that we're going to take them from whatever churches or religions already defined and say we are kind of like saying that's what we want to complement, but we want to take these words and also kind of reinvent them with other concepts that also come into play when it comes to temple and sacred spaces and purity and all these concepts that come and go again. So yes, true, there can be like many critiques to actually the whole situation of what a temple is and what does it mean to society, but we are trying to have a little a break and trying to also redefine definitions. Yeah, redefine definitions. But yeah, of course, this is the whole discussion. Like, what does each person think about these concepts? And I think that's the interesting part of this. Like, for example, you're bringing a concern, no? And I think that has to again come into the discussion and be redefined. So I think it's kind of cool that we are starting from zero. This project, there is not a big structure behind it. There is not like a big planning. And what we want to do is this participative process of just building it and including all these concerns you have also, like that one.
And how can we have, are there any ideas and how we, like, is it
well, maybe we can talk about now, because maybe this was too technical. We can talk about our experiences that we had during the temple and we can talk about, maybe some other persons can also say what do they, maybe that they are a bit more extern, like Ana Lucia or Mariana. They can also talk about what they, I don't know, just maybe a little reflection to kind of hear also, yeah, they have like this kind of in middle perspective, you know, because they were maybe secondary in the process, but they also have like a different kind of perspective. I don't know. I would say that maybe that's something that we can do now.
Yeah, I kind of, it made me think also like what Leslie just mentioned about the concept of purity, but just extrapolating it also to many other notions that are around the notion of temple. And I mean, I like the will to try to kind of redefine a lot of these notions. But yeah, I guess you guys really need to have a very good, strong, and smart way of doing it so that people can really get the message that it's not taking out the negative connotations of many of these notions around uh, the concept of temple, but more like you want to take the very simple and basic idea and intuition about what is a temple and develop it on there, no? So yeah,
I think what is really important there is to not talk about the idea of a temple or the idea of purification as some goal we want to achieve, that we want to achieve like this like state of like being completely in balance with like this, I don't know, temple we're building or the state of purification we're reaching. But how I see the strength of the temple is that actually two approaches are kind of like clashing. So at the one hand, we have like this like really flat hierarchy approach, building a project together, like being political activists. It's almost like trusting in the system that it will build itself. It's almost like the Occupy movement that like kind of like brought like this idealistic flat hierarchy idea of the internet onto the streets, and the voice would kind of like the voices on the street would like be repeated by the people around them, so that the voices would be a collective voice and would be stronger. But in the end, the Occupy movement failed, and also the Arab Spring. So it was kind of like a similar idea of bringing like the internet movement on the street. But in the end, it was like because the situation, like the political landscape was already too, yeah, structured in a certain way. The internet couldn't really like fulfill his like idealistic potential. And then when we talk about the temple, it's like a really ancient concept, and it's also different, the concept, like when we talk about like Egyptian temple, or when we talk about a temple in Greek, a Greek temple.
yeah,
But I think it's really interesting that there's like really fundamental ideas of what it means to be human, but also like in a really disturbing way. And I think we saw a lot of like disturbing ways of how society and purity was dealt with in the past. And I think that's the strength of like combining like this really flat hierarchy, and maybe also like an approach like Leslie now brought in to queer purification with like this old concept of a temple, because I think through this clash, like there could be something really productive happening.
Yeah, I want to add something that I find like that the answer is already in front of us, but we are not looking at it. And it's that when Marcelo started explaining how he built this infrastructure, he started thinking from the way in which a real temple is built, right? So he's thinking about the materiality and how materiality gives you signals to understand where you are and how to behave, or what are the rules and the concepts that are like going along with a meeting or with a gathering. And I think that something that would kind of turn that abstraction of digitality, which I don't know her name, but who talked about menstruation, would be think about some way in which that physicality that talks about cycles and temporal developments that are not expressed by digital platforms could go along with the digital platform. So you have these kind of organic appendices that are going along with the agenda that is only conceptual. So in that sense, you kind of skip that error that Lucas was talking about, that the Occupy movement tried just to replicate something digital into materiality, which was not fit for that. So the question is how you start putting all these organic and physical things that are also affecting perception of situations into them, even though it's through a tool as Discord. I don't know, like try to find that realm of the digitality that makes a link with the bodies. We also talked about that with the interface that Ruben talked about dating apps. It's kind of the same thing, but in a different way, right? I don't know.
Yeah, kind of.
And maybe it's also interesting to see what has happened in our temple, you know, and trying to maybe be in a bubble of our own temple and saying what kind of attitudes did we have, how what behaviors did we implement, and maybe also observe us kind of first, and then see what can we define as a temple in all these kind of situations. So I think it's also interesting for us to just kind of feed our next steps with what we have done, and even though it's little, you know, and trying to have a little disattachment from like what do we think a temple really is, or what do we think a religion is, or a church and stuff like that.
Well, one thing that I feel it's really interesting, more than applying a name and a concept, saying temple or saying sacred or saying purity, I think what is interesting is that we're building something, and we can take as a starting point what Javi said about architecture being an information holder. And I think that's the part where we are kind of spreading information everywhere, and maybe feeling the need of holding that information in some way to just not be, you know, air, like something that, you know, just put a mascara on the transparency of information to kind of hold it so we can use it in the future, or maybe just stop and reflect a little longer on all of the things that we are sharing, which I think is interesting. Also about the purpose, I don't know about guidelines or behavior, because talking about behavior, it opens a completely different discussion, I think. But maybe to kind of come together into different purposes of how we can understand our relationship with building this architecture. One can be, yes, like the intermixing reality or digitality with cycles of more biological cycles. I think that's a very interesting one. But also the building of an archive itself, it's a purpose. No, it's an archive that can talk about concepts, or an archive that can talk about an archive itself. I don't know. There's like a variety of purposes here. And also, I think we should kind of like remember why you guys wanted to start this, which was, I mean, I think one of the ideas was to talk about how this new sensation of reality, which is the confining in our homes, excluded us and excluded people that work in relation to public space a lot, and that now that like super big tool, it wasn't available for us anymore, and how this new reality is affecting our daily life. And I think we should go back a little bit into thinking of that in the effort of making this new architecture. And I honestly didn't understand Discord quite well, because it was too fast for me and a very slow learner. But I would love to kind of like do some tries and probably having what you said at the beginning, to make workshops as how can this work, because I think if we don't try it, then there's no way on having a more accurate critique on the things that it's being proposed.
Yeah, basically, what my my idea was, or our idea, was to just go maybe 3 steps to a future vision of how something could be. And this code is just like this one thing that could have happened. But I like what you said about oh, fuck. Okay, I'm starting differently. So in these terminologies, we just take them because we use them since they mean a lot to some people, and it's also, I think, a radical thing to say this is holy or this is sacred. And my understanding of sacred is really much based on this on the literal translation from the Hebrew word kadosh, which means to set apart. Like the Egypt temple, which with all the knowledge inside, this temple itself is the temple because it has been set apart from everything else. And I just want to make a small analogy. I think you're all kind of familiar with the tool chat roulette, where you just go inside, you put your webcam on, and then you press on a button, and you get mixed up with another person, which is like one of the dirtiest places, I think, in the internet. The same technology that has given us this, with a link that can only be taken by people that we send it to, made this conference call possible. So the way on how I make technology or knowledge available is strongly much as saying a lot about the quality of it. So if there is anything open source, just open source that's laying around there, it maybe is not in our minds right now treated as something valuable. And I just think we need to give the knowledge value that is not monetary. It is not money. It is more like you have to give a part of yourself. And here we're coming to the temple analogy of doing a sacrifice. You have to involve yourself. You have to answer that riddle. You have to whatever, send a picture of yourself or a text, and that way you can be part of the open archive as soon as you uploaded one of your own papers, and then you can be like it's a very different model of worth, like how much is something worth. That was
Yeah, I also have another question. So like the thing that you guys talk a lot about, the like keeping this knowledge, like do you guys, yeah, like or it means also like that people that comes here share also their belief system, or it's really more empirical knowledge, or what kind of archive you guys are thinking of? Or yeah, because when I also think of the knowledge that is maybe written in temples, that like the one you showed us, or even in more modern temples, it's always a certain kind of more like a belief system that it's engraved there. No, it's well, also maybe certain knowledge, but I'm just curious, like, what do you really have in mind? Like, to really have much more strong statements that are backed with a specific base, like information, like real facts, or it's more like an opinion belief system kind of empirical knowledge that you want to share and you want people to have access to?
Well, I don't know if I can maybe answer that a little bit. I think one of the also the reasons that we started to do the digital temple, maybe, or we're trying to define it better said, with this kind of writing our thoughts and having a little bit of more organizing what that is, like in written somewhere, is because also through Loom we have been asked, and we also between each other, like, we haven't defined what are we as a collective. And I think the problem, me personally, and maybe also some persons had in the collective, is that always it has this socio-political kind of framework to it, and it's really academical or really scientifical. And I think when we started to do also the digital temple, we discovered that we can go around it, and we don't have to really be into the whole socio-political debate about left or right or stuff like that, but we can enter into what it is to be human kind of questions. And there it's like another kind of environment appears, so, and it's really interesting because there it's like it's like nobody talks about that, like everyone or well, not one, but it's really unexplored territories, because who wants to start to define like what are the rules you want for humanity? It's really broad and open questions. So I think the objectives of trying to do this are more to respond these kind of questions. What does it mean to be human, and what kind of societies do we want for humans, and are trying to also like detach from this whole sociopolitical debates of left, right, or stuff like that. So maybe that answers also a little bit that.
Yeah, I mean, in some sense it does. I see your point. So also you're not try to making it very, as you say, like very academic. It's more also like, I mean, in a way, it's let's say a well-justified belief system that you want to kind of share, like a community that shares this. Yeah. And also
Yeah, but I think. Oh.
No, sorry, Javi, go.
Yeah, my internet connection is fading. I think it's not. I think what Alberto said is what he wants inside of it, which I also go with a long way, and maybe I would also add more to that. But I think the idea would not be like what Alberto want, but what do the participants want to be inside of it. And I just stumbled upon an example which I was using a lot while I was studying, and I just wanted to show it to you quickly to have like a picture in mind how I can somehow imagine how that archive would look like. And it's called, I hope you all know it, otherwise you will thank me for now knowing it. It's called SOC Studio, and it's mainly, I don't know, it's a group, it's kind of also a collective, and it calls itself a non-linear journey through distant territories of human imagination. And in the end, it's just interesting articles. Is the quality bad?
No, it's fine.
Okay. And I don't know, like when you're interested in art or whatever, then you go on this website, and they're like they just, maybe each of these things is like one of the talks that we had in the temple, and each one gets kind of a card, and then in that there's this information that has been said in that presentation made by the person who was holding it, and you can access it. And by that, it is a growing archive where I believe in the value of co-creation, that some things only come out when they are being taken out by maybe a collective. Then this temple maybe is the tool to unearth knowledge that has not been archived in a way. And in my opinion, everything that we put out in the cyberspace is one thing that all humans can access and makes the thing better. And if then that content is also queer, tolerant, and open and free, then it's also high quality content. So we are trying to maybe also put a counterweight to what most of the internet is right now. Maybe how to say it like that.
I think what I think is interesting about this discussion about the temple and how various people, even within the collective, perceive it in a different way, is what makes this temple the right platform for a discourse. Because for me, what makes this temple a great starting point for coming together and why we value till now, like all of us that come together, this concept so much, is because in most of our practices, like talking about Panosmiko, but also talking about Shay's presentation from from last week, we're talking about like this kind of like imaginatory power of metaphors and of working with symbols of human history in order to look at the reality that we are facing now. So Shay was, for example, working with kind of like this idea of a church window in her plastic pavilion. Panosmiko is working with these mobile implications of purity in their work that is really contemporary and is finding solutions actually for the actual state of the river and the actual now. And I think I personally don't see this temple as like this ideal belief system that we're going to create, that we find now the solution for humankind and find the ideal system of ideal belief system for humans. That is like completely utopic, and I don't believe in that. But what I do believe is in that, in kind of like creating this analogy to like really ancient systems of creating belief systems, we here constantly question ourselves, and we constantly question different components of various belief systems. And I think that is what made most of the discussions we had till now so strong, because we had like really clashes of different perception of how humanity is dealing with certain issues. And for me, that is like for me, that's the goal of the temple, to create this kind of like environment of clashes of beliefs.
I mean, I actually like a lot what you just said, that it's really about more like fighting or contrasting different belief systems. And that's what I was asking this actually, because I think that's more the notion of an anti-temple, in which all the belief systems can be transformed and changed and mutated, and it's not something static, no? But yeah, I mean, I see three very different views, but at the same time that complement each other. That, I mean, it's yours, Lucas, Javis, and Conejos. And yeah, I mean.
What is yours?
Mine?
Well, but that's the thing, like, that's why we are trying to do this workshop also, because even though we have done maybe a little bit of progress, we are willing to go all the way back, like, and maybe even change in the name of temple if that word doesn't fit to us, you know, and yeah, just going all the way to the zero again, even though we just have maybe a little bit of progress. But again, it's like, maybe we don't get to this utopia, but of course, why not try, you know? Try to get all these many belief systems and try to discuss ideas. What do you think is good? What do you think is bad? What do you think is interesting? What do you think is not interesting? And again, just starting to build it. So yeah, I also agree with what Lucas says. It's this platform that can allow that to happen.
But I want to hear what Andreas.
Yeah, I was thinking that the word temple in my mind is bringing something that is connected to religion, but also I can see now after this discussion that what would mean is like a worship to knowledge, or a worship to creating a discourse of ideas. And this, in this concept, I could see it. And I could see it as a celebration of ideas. I could see this, and also I found very fascinating the archive that you showed as an example of this webpage called Socks. It gives me the idea that the ritual that is very connected to the temple, and it has this sequence of actions that they have this spirituality in it. It could be all this process to achieve this, the knowledge, or to try to have to orchestrate a discussion. At least it could be a ritual. But at the beginning of the presentation, I was getting the idea of also of a kind of hierarchies, which I think is not the matter after I hear them, after I hear the discussion. I mean, because it was a phrase like somebody would be entitled to enter that. And so this was giving me the idea of hierarchies. But I mean, now I understand that it's something different. And yeah. But I find it very fascinating, all this archive collection, because, yeah.
Thanks for the comment. The hierarchy thing is also a big thing for me, and that's why I think we have to somehow maybe rediscuss this terminology, because we had it in our collective in the beginning. We wanted to work hierarchy-less, but then we found out if there's no hierarchy, then there's no one who is responsible. And if we then build something up that can fall down and hurt somebody, we just need to be sure who in the chain is taking responsibilities. And so we created a different hierarchy model where all the voices of the people were the same, but there were some people who were coordinators and managers, and that's how we more called them. So the way that I see it is that people are always very afraid of these systems, since they only know how they have been used badly. But hierarchy as a system itself, that doesn't always have to say, okay, this person is telling all the people down. No, but maybe when it's coming to purity, maybe the next time Panosmicos should answer, because they are in the hierarchy level about purity the highest, because they treated this topic a lot. So that's maybe then their thing to answer or whatever. I'm just saying that there are different levels, and each of us is maybe in one thing the specialist, and then all of the others should understand in this moment I have to lower myself, and then we're coming to a very fluid system of hierarchy. And the biggest step in the beginning for this temple is the involvement, and all of you that are coming here more than once and twice and are coming back are doing something. You're doing that. That's what we call the sacrifice. You're always involving yourself, and by that is the only entry payment that you have to do. But it's differentiating you from the other 7 billion people on this planet, in a way, since you decided to be here and not somewhere else. But I would also just like to hear Anna's vision then, because you're also coming back a lot. So what is it, what this gives to you, and what is it, why you're coming back, and where do you want to see it go?
She's my best friend.
No, besides from that, commenting also on what I think and connecting just to what Andreas said, I really like what he said, that it's a celebration of ideas. And in that sense, it really portrays or describes what these sessions are about. And what I think keeps me coming back is that in every session, I think I really do learn a different thing, like either by looking at someone else's work or by just listening to the flow of the conversation. And I think content is like the most, I mean, that's really important for me when I choose a podcast or when I read something. So I think yeah, that's what keeps me coming back, even though I do think that still the whole structure of how to develop the content of the sessions could be improved for sure, but it's going like in the right track. And I think I go in line with what Lucas said about like crashing and transforming the belief systems. Because yeah, I'm not too close to the utopian version of it, like Ascone wants, Ascone is. But
I'm Cone or Alberto.
yeah, sorry, I call him Cone, but it's Alberto for the rest of you. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's basically it. I mean, that I do think that there's something I can chew on every session and think about it, like for the coming days and afterwards, or that makes me Google some things, and that's really nice. And I guess that's it. But yeah, like to your second question, which is how do I see it going forward? Or as Mariana said, what's next? I could imagine that, yeah, I mean, she has a point there, Mariana said, as trying things and then see if they work on the go. Otherwise, I guess it's really difficult for us to judge what's the right next step. But yeah, also I think I really like that we bring purpose or different purposes together, or as she also said, or maybe different themes, and then then you have said, we can have different little expert discussions. Not expert because we are, I mean, well, I don't consider myself an expert on anything. I'm just passionate about certain topics, let's say. But I think that would be nice, and then it will also maybe I guess make different kinds of sessions. So maybe we can have sometimes some sessions that are more like, okay, we have 2 presentations as they have been going, no? And then there can be some other sessions in which there's maybe certain topics that maybe we know in advance, so we can think a bit about it, maybe 3-4 days in advance, and we can come together and bring all our ideas or different insights, or things like this, I could imagine. But
I mean, we also have a big intention to give this away from Loom. I mean, that's also the reason why we try to. Also, one of the reasons we try to have this new platform is because we don't want people to go in into like Loom territory, Slack, and just having the discussion there. We want to have like a neutral territory where it's not Loom, you know. It's kind of like the ones who want to participate. Those are the owners of the decisions and the owners of the whole project, or you know what I mean. So also, like, the whole thing of this is just our intention to try to give it up to see who is also out there and willing to construct with. And I think that's also, yeah, that has to be kind of like a little bit noticed, that it's not Loom. So maybe that also can help for other people to integrate, no?
Also, I think, well, I would like to say that, I mean, I raised the question last session that what was the next step, but maybe even that can be questionable. I mean, you can all question me, like, why do you need a next step? Maybe it's only me that, you know, kind of like needs this, but perhaps like the way that things are being, you know, taken, or how the sessions have been flow, it's good, it's nice. We perhaps need to stay like this for a couple of more sessions and see what's what in a month. I don't know. it's just so okay. I will share why I think I need a next step. It's more about my own personality that kind of like doesn't rest until finding the purpose or the goal in the things that I'm doing, and much of that means that I like to experiment a lot, and kind of like for me it was making me feel very like, again, super comfortable with the sessions, but then that comfort arised for me like a I don't know, something like, okay, this is getting too comfortable, too nice, too we need something new, you know, like we need to problematize this, we need to add a different component to mix it all up and, you know, kind of see what's what, and at the end of that mixing. But that's just me. Maybe I don't know, maybe you guys feel very different, and the way that we've been having sessions, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also think the conversation today went a bit too it drifted a little away from the center about like reflecting on what have we done. And it's true, like I also think it's good that we explore possibilities in this digital like tools and platforms, but I also think it's interesting to also reflect on just what we have done, you know, like you say, like our conversations, you know, the amazing possibility to meet with persons around the world and just like share topics that we're interested in, like also bring our subjective daily life into the lives of others. And I think, yeah, maybe we can concentrate on that, you know, and yeah, for sure.
I have to say, like, Mariana, I totally feel you. That is also my behavior. Sometimes I'm working one day only to download tools and plugins to make my workflow better, and I haven't worked one single hour. And that is also sometimes really distracting, since most of the work is getting done by being really good in a system and then keep it running, and then I'm just as you also think, as you also see, I'm seeing more potential in this than it maybe is giving, but maybe we also don't have to make everything grow. Maybe this is sustainable, and maybe this will also not continue in that kind of extent when the Corona crisis is over, but it was like maybe a certain point in time and space where we all got somehow the seed from other people, and maybe something very different than this digital temple will grow out of it. I think as soon as the experiments that we're doing are not distracting the regular practice, I would also say we should experiment a lot. And as soon as we know if Discord can like guarantee the same quality as Zoom to have like this meeting, how it is right now, then we can just switch over to this other platform. But right now we are trying to figure out the technical problems of screen sharing and whatever. And as soon as that is clear, I would also say let's do the experiment, but also with the rule in mind that this is a running system. Why change it?
Mm-hmm.
Correcto.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we did rush a little bit in there. So I think maybe for now we can keep it as a possible scenario that we can go to. Mm-hmm. And maybe for now we just concentrate maybe on a little bit of reflecting on, yeah, like how can we not think too much in the future, but think more in the near future, no? Maybe Ana also wanted to say some things about like, or how do you think, Ana Lucia? I don't know, or what do you think?
About what? I mean, about how to improve?
Yeah, how to improve in the immediate kind of. Or someone else, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just because we had a talk before, like also like to catch up in our personal level, and then this came up. No, just as an observation, I think So far there have been really nice talks by very different types of people and projects. But I think that sometimes the discussion part needed a bit more push from the moderators. Yeah, I mean, I guess that can happen. No, it's also because it should not be so structured, the whole thing, as having one moderator and that. But I think it would be useful sometimes to have a bit more guidance. Yeah, by, I don't know, by the people that knows what is going to be presented and things like that. Because I guess sometimes the audience is a bit more shy, or just processing in their minds what just have been said. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a small observation that maybe sometimes you can take turns, and or even maybe some of us, we can help sometimes when you think there's specific presentation that you might think, maybe Andreas will be good at this, because maybe this topic relates a bit with what he is doing, or something like that. It could work also, like a bit of rotating, so that you guys don't always have this this very defined role.
Maybe then I have a proposition for that. I think what would really help would be, and this was one of the things that I would have proposed also in the new Discord channel, that each person leaves kind of a small description text of them, since we all know what people say, and by that now I know all of the people who are in this channel right now, and I would know somehow who I could point a question to. But maybe it would also be nice to have just 3 sentences about yourself, what you're interested in, even if it's a funky thing. Maybe Mariana writes that she's a self-optimizing maniac like me, and then this could be also just to, yeah, or we do maybe also an interaction round just like this. But I think the written thing is nice, because then it can somehow, I don't know, like in the Discord, then there would be a channel where all the people introduce themselves, and when you come inside the temple, you can go in that channel and just read while the people are talking. You go like in this room and check a bit here, and then you go there. That's what I've just said, like that this Zoom conference is somehow really well made into this focused talking, but it stops there. There's nothing more than that. Like small name tags that we have still also, but there's nothing else.
Yeah, I think that would be useful, at least to have a more general idea also what is the participant's background in a way, and to, yeah, bring a bit more of the intuition of what the people is interested in. Yeah.
It could be something like a little bit more questions also, like what brings you to the digital temple, or why are you interested in being here, what keeps you up at night, and what is your vision for the change of the societal structures. I don't know.
Proof Fermat's theorem.
Yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's. I think actually that would be a really nice question to have as an archive for every person that visits the temple, because then you will have a record of what is the thing that is attracting people.
Yeah. That was one of the rooms that I first also thought of, the room that you come inside, and this first room of the arrival and the entry, I imagine it like a big hall where you just like look at everybody who has been there, and everybody explains themselves and how do I act when I go inside. So it's more like a room that is focused on the people and the personal things, which is also kind of part of the archive in a way. But then on the other side, behind the talks, there's the sanctuary with what the people brought, the projects and their knowledge and whatever. So there's also like 2 categories of knowledge contained in this temple. And I always have to think about this one time that when I called it traces, like in my mind, that every time somebody's coming, he's leaving a trace, because those things, they have like some strong magic in it. I was once in Venice in the what's it called, in the where they put the prisoners, and you could go in the old cells, and there were like people carving in the walls.
Yeah.
And those traces, they don't mean anything. They don't have any academical worth or anything. But when you stand in front of them, it's a very magical connection that you get.
Yeah, but maybe again we're stepping again into the future. Maybe we can maybe discuss about how do we find this format of the talks. Yeah, about these talks. Because there was a question at the beginning, so should we have like three different talks that are not related at all? And then we try to cross-reference them, which is kind of difficult, because if we have a talk from, I don't know, from biology, and then we have a talk from the other way, mathematics, it's really difficult to kind of cross-reference. But also interesting, because at the end, knowledge is knowledge, and doesn't matter, you know? And you can find like you can find interesting like threads. So maybe some opinions about, do you wish that we have more curated content that has more like a main topic, or we still go through this like three random presentations, and then we try to link them? I don't know. For me, that would be like a really immediate question to solve.
I think the random works better. Well, because it's just more challenging to try to connect points and make and it's more rich as well, kind of trying to net between ideas and disciplines. I think and at the end, I think it's more, you gain more by doing that than just like sticking to one subject. Mm-hmm. Oh, they will talk about philosophy and all things turn around that subject. Then you lose kind of like perspectives and multiplicities that they do exist intertwined in reality. So for me, the randomness, it's a very key thing. It's important to keep that. At least that's my point of view.
Mm-hmm. For me, I not necessarily agree. I think it's nice to have, I mean, because you can have a talk from art and a talk from science, but that kind of are talking about the same or a similar subject, but just treated in a completely different perspective. I think it's more like it's nice to have a curated content. Yeah, I think it's important. Otherwise, I mean, I also like the idea of the randomness, but I think in this, there's really a risk in which some particular talk or speaker will be completely obliterated or will be completely cornered. And like, because, yeah, I mean, there's no one that wants to talk about that. I don't know. Me personally, I think I really enjoyed, I don't know. I think, for instance, last week, I think that Sei's work, which was really interesting, didn't got the right attention or the response, precisely because maybe the whole session diverted a bit in different narratives, and I think that's fine. But yeah, I mean, it was a bit also unfortunate. I mean, I wanted to ask some questions, but I needed to leave early, and it's not just because of my personal perspective, but I just thought that it was a bit unfortunate that in the end her talk was a bit like forgotten.
Yeah, I get both points, and I see a lot of like good reasons on both points. Maybe we can try to mix it up and kind of have like three subjects that are in three different corners kind of knowledge, but we try to centralize a little thread between them, so there is kind of a little gravity between them. Because like true in real life, like in practical life, it's super interesting to have like this super randomness, but at the end, it's true. By being so random, we leave out big chunks of information without being discussed, or they just go under the water.
But I don't see how these, I mean, they can coexist. We can have one session that it's a topic fixed one, and one session of a very random mix, you know, and they can coexist.
Yeah, definitely. That's true.
We don't have to choose one on top of the other, I think.
Also, we don't have so many people who are coming that we could curate. Like you can only curate if you have more than spaces. But I personally would vote for focus, and that would mean if there are multiple topics, then we should really work on a kind of a time frame, since I believe that most of the things that are being said can be said in, like, if I would have written down everything I would have said today, and you also, then our talk, then it wouldn't be like a live talk. But I think we can say like it's a 5-minute presentation, and then the maybe, yeah, okay, it could get more time and whatever, but I think like a good idea can be explained in 5 minutes, and there are a lot of formats where this is being shown that this is working. And if we somehow say this is what we want, more like a focused input to give a direction for a talk, then the presentation themselves that don't have to be like 45 minutes each, because they have been sometimes 45 minutes, which was super interesting to me, but maybe it was counterproductive in the way that then we don't have energy for talks, since it's also a night format in a way for some of us.
Yeah, but then I wouldn't go to 5 minutes, because if we have seen that we tend to have long conversations or long presentations, then it's better to try to limit them, maybe to say 20 minutes, but not to drastically say 5 minutes. You know, maybe
it depends on what you want. Like if you want, what can you say in 20 minutes what you cannot say in 5? In my opinion, to know that you only have 5 minutes time to talk, you're more conceptually tackling a topic, which is sometimes maybe not giving the deepest insight of knowledge, but then through the talk, the knowledge can come up from that person, since that person is in that special talk the expert for whatever he or she was talking about. And that would make it somehow, in my opinion, really interesting that then the key speaker is also a little bit a special person in that talk, since he or she is coming, and next time he or she is the participant, but in that particular case in the hierarchy, it's the person who has the knowledge about the topic in a way, and we can then maybe get the knowledge out of them by talking with them.
But that's, I mean, that's yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I think in many cases it's not true. I mean, you can be studying one topic, but you can not just obviate the knowledge that other persons and experience that they do have around that topic, you know, kind of, I don't know, just to point out experts, it seems to me a little extreme to say, oh, okay, now we're going to learn from you. It's kind of like, no, I think for me, sharing it's more important, and by sharing, then you learn through conversation, and you learn through dialogue, and to questioning, and to, yes, of course, like one person can set the conversation, like the start of the conversation, but then that goes in any different directions, you know, and that's for me the reach of all of these.
But that's exactly what I proposed.
Well,
so it's not about like it's like what I'm saying is that the presentation part itself can be somewhat like a lecture more format, which is then maybe 45 minutes to an hour, or the format is more like, hey guys, you know, I'm studying this and that, and here is what I'm doing, and this is why it's interesting, and whatever. And maybe it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but I think this format of more like 15 to 10 minutes is giving a different form of presentation in the end than a 45 minutes presentation. And I experience it more interesting to, as you say, to make a loop out of the knowledge and saying, okay, this is as much as you know to understand what I'm talking about. Maybe give me your thoughts, and then the person themselves that is presenting maybe is getting a lot of nice criteria and feedback also on whatever he or she is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel yeah, sorry, you first.
No, I think, I mean, even if someone gives a short presentation, it can still be like of these two formats. No, it doesn't need to be one or another. I think, yeah, I think this is okay. I mean, for me, it's actually nice to, yeah, to go a bit. I mean, I like both, like the dialogue and also like to actually see more concretely what this person is doing, no, in their work or their thoughts about it, because then I can kind of say something back on that. And for me, it would be very difficult to point out, or at least personally to connect what I do, like in my research, to someone that asking, yeah, okay, what do you think about that? And I don't know, I think it's nice to have a bit of a frame that this person gives you, and then in this frame you start like kind of drawing around and like conceptually speaking. Yeah.
I also think that maybe Javi, it's a bit rushing. I don't know. So I mean, it's like I feel like you're trying to restructure the whole thing sometimes a bit too far away, and because I think it's working. So if it's working, I would just do like small adjustments to the system, not necessarily change it, because I think it's actually kind of working. So I would do more like this kind of questions we had. Should we find like a little thread through the presentations? Should we maybe try to be really good with the 15 minutes instead of saying let's go back to 5 and they were 45? I would do like small adjustments to the system.
I think
because it's working.
I think one adjustment which would be great was this idea of having like one like person that is like kind of like prepared for the person presenting, and kind of researching some questions, noting some questions already down, so that each presentation also like gets like the right appreciation. I think it's like a small change that we can do, that like every time we talk before we have our presentations, and then one person feels responsible for this one presentation and is just prepared, sort of. Then we can have a flow of discussions as we always had, but we just have like this one person that is always an expert on this talk, sort of, and is kind of like directing the discussion in some sort of way.
Who would like to do that?
No, it's always a different person.
Yeah, but who wants to do it next week?
Depends on who is there. Yeah, also another suggestion that might work is that maybe to have more curated content, to maybe have it more sporadically, or maybe like every 2 weeks, or yeah, something. I mean, that could work. I don't know, this is just a proposal. It's not that I'm saying that having it every week is too much. I'm just saying that it could maybe give some time to, yeah.
Yeah, in that sense, I think it would be cool to devote some session to work on that archive and material infrastructure that it's been developed or that could be developed. So in some way, it becomes a conceptual workshop in which you can follow kind of this memory that has been creating the automatization of the info that is being uploaded and talked about. So why? Because you can have a really large archive, but it's useless if it's not active. I don't think that it's relevant to have more information on the cloud if you are not managing it and making it visible and making it accessible. So in that sense, if there are sessions in which that info is being ordered, and kind of made accessible to some kind of public, even if it's through Loom's page or any of the participants' platforms, then it becomes something that has a life beyond these meetings, and that's important. And I don't know if any of you wants to spend time in that, these meetings. I think it's more organic if sometimes you are working directly with that and reflecting on that.
I mean, we are doing it right now, no? Like we kind of didn't have a presentation, but we're talking about the temple, and then next week there will be a presentation. Maybe we just say the week on that coming next.
We are not making any layout of that, and we are not. I know that we don't have the platform active yet.
Mm-hmm.
But what you were saying about automatization being like the cool part of doing things digital, it can also be a tool, un arma de doble filo. How do you say that? Like a two-sided sword, like something that could be positive or negative at the same time. Because if you don't work with your content, then you are just like putting trash into the network, you know, that is not useful for anything. So I think that making that layout, for example, what Lucas did with the Coronas in map, it's one of the ways in which you can actually work. And for example, thanks to that map is that I got interested in the digital temple, and then we started like thinking about this, because it's something that instead of having to go into a different room and reading what things have happened or how does something works, if you have one good piece of this kind, then you get directly into the conversation because it's all synthesized and available in that sense. I don't know. I think that it's like being responsible on the information you are generating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, I want to single out something. I'm asking, what do you think? I think it would be important for the participants to encourage to have contact, face-to-face contact as well. Maybe it's kind of, I know it's digital temple, but I just wonder how these meetings and what is shared in these meetings is shaped by the media, by the medium. I don't know if I'm being clear. For example, like I will give an example to be more clear. I was thinking on, for example, if you have a case of someone who has psychosis, and if that person is they receive a treatment from from a psychiatrist, at the end you will have a psychiatrist case. Maybe not what the person was experiences, but a case of psychiatry. And so I was thinking that how these meetings, or how what we are sharing will be different if we were in a if we were together in a room. Of course, we can not do it right now, and I know that all of us are in different cities, but I think it would be important to encourage to have face-to-face contact whenever we can. I don't know what you think.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
Yeah, it would be amazing if we can meet. Yeah.
Like a reunion, digital temple after Corona.
Yeah, and then we're all awkward in real life, no?
Yeah.
Hi. There are some possibilities where we are allowed to invite people. So let's see what happens in the late year if events will go down. I don't know if a flight from Mexico City is affordable, but
Mexico City.
Yeah, and or at least, for example, the people who is in the same city, or if I travel to
Where are you, Andrea? Where are you?
in London right
Okay.
now.
that's manageable. Quite, yeah.
I think we have no.
Not too far.
I know it's not you anymore, no?
Sorry.
It's not. Is it? It doesn't matter. Let's don't start that topic, please. I wanted to say like it's not in Europe anymore.
No, it's not.
We can actually do a European meeting, but yeah, I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, or whenever, if I go to Mexico City, no, apart of course I will see Mariana for other reasons and Manolo, but why not? For discussing the things that we are discussing. I'm just, I just for the reason that, or how could we integrate that we are having these meetings through this medium? How my question is how the medium shape the way we share things. That's the thing.
I mean, yeah, I think it's obvious. I think obviously, well, not obviously, sorry, but I think every medium you experience anything is going to shape it. So if we have a meeting in the public space, that was kind of the presentation of Mariana.
Yeah.
How also that shapes that experience, you know. So I think yes, but then I don't understand the reason why exactly you're proposing it, because I think each experience, doesn't matter where it happens, is going to be determined by the space and the design of where it's happening. But we can try other kind of I don't know. There's most of us are in Hamburg, and we can meet. And with the other persons, it would be kind of really difficult for the moment.
Yeah, maybe I could see say.
But I think it's interesting to play with this idea, maybe like in a funny collage of like in like all the cities that are represented here, we kind of like just like in a Photoshop collage meet already or something. To play with like the sensation of like, because we all kind of like dream of this moment to happen, but it seems so distant. I don't know, maybe it doesn't have to be a collage, but I do think like that it's really interesting to play with like the sensation of
or
so
also
like,
also maybe we can play with what Javier said, with Javi said, that we can try to make a little paragraph, and maybe we cannot get together, but by informing us, by knowing who persons are who and where are they coming from, we can have this perception about where is everyone and a little bit of context from everyone. Because like, yeah, right now we have a problem that we don't really know who is speaking, and we don't have context. Yeah. So what we have to bring is also a little bit of context of each person into the whole platform to kind of know what's happening.
Yeah, but what maybe would be cool that to this description we add like a small paragraph on like in which bar, restaurant, or space would we have the meeting in your own.
Yeah.
This kind of like gives like a funny note to it.
Nice.
Then I would recommend that since we're at 2 hours, maybe we can just finalize with maybe a conclusion, because I don't think we were getting anywhere today. Like we just opened a big box of chaos. That's important, because now we know there's a lot of ways we can go. But if we maybe say like a little conclusion about something, we can maybe try to bring some closure. No?
Me personally, I would keep thinking about the technological side of the next step, and because also this narrative of having rooms and having a gate to enter in my head is shaping this whole thing just to a different level. So like we're hanging out in rooms and then we're going in another room and talking there and then going back to this room. It is giving more of a perception of inviting someone somewhere. That's why I will just keep on thinking about it as I did it now, and I invite everybody to also do counter thoughts on it.
Yeah. I think another thing which we can try to establish is now that we have like really this 1 week kind of like workshop meeting. The next week we have the presentations, and I think another good idea for that is like we can do this platform Marcelo is now building. We can use it always in the workshop meetings, and for the presentations we still use Zoom as it's easier accessible for other people. And then we have different levels of access and different levels of engagement also according to the platforms.
Yeah, if that's not too many platforms, some people are afraid of having too many apps. So
no, just because everybody's using Zoom, so for the presentations,
yeah,
and for people, it's like the most easy access for outsiders to it.
Yes, that's true.
We now know each other, so we can have our workshops, meetings in the platform that you now proposed.
I would like to second the idea of Marcelo. I mean, if you put up the Discord app program, whatever app is, I will happily integrate myself into that discussion and to try it out. Also, I want to say, I think I said it already, but sorry for my, I don't know, I just feel like I dropped a bomb that was going it feels a little bit going nowhere, but hopefully hopefully it will turn into something good. And what else? Nothing. I will try to understand what the meaning of a temple is to me, to myself, because I think you already have and discovered like your point of view and the way that you relate to this word and how to behave on it. So I'll try to make an effort to understand mine and share it with you at the next episode. And what else? I think, of course, the idea of a gathering, a face-to-face gathering, it's nice, it's beautiful, it's marvelous, it's gorgeous, but I think that's thinking way ahead into the future. Let's just keep it. Let's just keep it there.
That's our final. Let's put it our sort of final goal. Have a barbecue. No, I don't know. There's a vegetarian.
No, but then when we're doing another temple, and then we are building a temple, then like a real one, like a spatial one, and then we are all gonna meet there, and
yeah, and then
that will be the final step, like bringing it to real life.
And then we become the most evil church out there, worse than the Catholics.
So I was then I would I put the link for Discord right now in the group chat. So maybe each person of you can copy it, and I'm just gonna really quickly show you what you have to do.
Okay, but maybe let's. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to like, because it was a question of Mariana, that you just when you come inside, it is this big group here list on the left side, and you see there are different channels.
But wait. I have to put like put that a name, right? A username.
Yeah, you have to go. Yeah. You have to go inside, and then it's like a chat. It's like different chat channels, and you have to first on the first thing read the text, and then do whatever is said in the text, and then you have full access to this server structure. It's a little bit like Slack or Trello or anything. Look, Mariana is already inside. Yeah, so just like that, you know that then we could also have a channel here where we put this description in the text. I can like Andreas wrote just that he will send it to us. Maybe he's sending it to Loom, I don't know. And then we can also collect them here, if that's okay for everyone.
Okay.
The cool thing is, you know, like here, like people, like this is Mariana, as you can all see, and I can say her, she's I just came up with some role names, Drifter Seeker, and she can also be part of Panosmico.
Okay, cool. El.
Just prepare that one. Who has any else ideas? Any more ideas?
Yeah, I think my conclusions of today, or at least my personal insight, is to, or as suggestions, is to really focus on quality of content. I think content keeps your audience and also brings more. So that's, I think, the most important aspect. And if this requires that you guys, or like that we need to get together not so often, that's fine. You will keep your audience also craving for more. And another suggestion is that the three of you have different perspectives and different strengths, and that's really nice and refreshing to see. And maybe you can use all these different aspects by each of you maybe challenge, organizing your own workshop, or make a whole session that it's mostly in the topics you're interested in, and then we can rotate, like this, and it will be quite dynamic and interesting to see what is each of these people interested in and how they portray it to the rest. Yeah.
So for next week, maybe that's like the only thing we have to discuss, because we're already having 2 presentations for next week. Maybe we can already improve the next meeting also, like slightly just. I mean, the idea was now the only improvement idea we had for next time was now that we had, like, for each person or for each group a certain responsible person, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That is kind of directing the discussion around it, yeah. So as I know Karina, I would do her presentation, if that's fine by you.
And who's the other one?
Queering Corona Crisis. It's like this group of China. They have an Instagram account where they have like a lot of explanations on what they stand for and what they do. So if somebody just like checks their Instagram account, they will get an idea of who they are.
Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah, maybe it's also good to have somebody. I don't know if we don't have anybody who's really knows a lot about feminist literature, don't we?
I mean, I guess also if you guys know them personally, it might be nice because you can even talk to them beforehand to ask for a more of a background context than, because also their feminist view might be, I don't know, with a different tone that some other one that don't know this group. I think it would be nice if some of you that you know them personally.
Or we asked Shannon, because she is a part of like this group, but she's also part of the collective, and she was also in like one or two of our meetings.
Yeah, that sounds.
I think it's best if she does it when she's part of like this project. But also this Leslie seemed like a person who would say a lot, so I think it would. And Shannon was more like responsible for the graphics, so maybe she's a good person to kind of like bring this discussion. Yeah.
But what was about that Leslie? She just said like she queered one thing and then she left. No.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Content is important. Because I guess she was new and she didn't know what we were talking about, and so that's the thing.
But that again is why I would insist, and I like that we're thinking ahead, but that's why for me it's important that we take kind of small steps when the system is kind of working, and we don't rushing into like super futuristic. And Mariana, I don't think you did anything wrong, because we were totally thinking about the next step anyway, so that's not your fault or anything. I just think that we should focus on these smaller judgments that we do, you know. Should we rather limit the talk to 15 rather than to 10? Or should we have like a little thread? So for me, it's like these little details that will bring a lot of more good quality to the content, like Anna says.
Within this framework that you guys already have, there's still a lot of room for experimentation, as Javi and Mariana want to. And I think that's nice. I guess this can be still transformed, like how much time do we need for this, how much time for that, or yeah, or maybe first there's one talk, discussion, then the second talk, discussion. I mean, this really can change, and we can experiment, yeah.
For now, what we can do is, because I don't think we can have another opportunity, is like with all that we heard, for now we can talk between us and try to bring a little bit of what everybody said into the next kind of like lineup protocol or framework, you know, and from there we can watch again, we can see again if we do again small changes. So for me, it's okay if we just go step by step. Yeah.
One more suggestion. Sorry, last one that for Lucas or Cone or Javi, I don't know who is in contact with the people presenting next week. Might be nice for them also to give them a bit of couple of guidelines, just to let them know what we do, what's somehow expected from them also. They can do, I guess, whatever they want, but just for them to have a clear picture, a bit what to expect. And also that we are from very different backgrounds, so don't expect like core knowledge on anything. Really treat us like 5-year-old kids that want to know. I think that would be nice, so that it's a bit easy for them to have a certain guidelines just to approach.
I think there has to be like a pre something that people already kind of step in here with knowing something, you know, because then of course if that doesn't happen, this pre introduction of what we have done happens, maybe a lot of misunderstanding, you know. So I also think that's important that we do something, I don't know, PDF or something that is like at least introducing the temple.
Yeah, a briefing, but it would be nice to have a briefing for people who talk, but that we can do personally. But it's also nice to have a briefing from the people who talk about their topic. So if people jump in half of it, they have maybe read at least like what the talk is kind of about. So I mean, it's also just like it would be this introduction, like each person that is coming to the temple introduces themselves, and that person who's doing the talk is doing it a bit longer and saying, this is what I will be talking about quickly.
Yeah. I think I will start also a docs file with like all those ideas that we had today on how to improve the way that we work together and how we distinguish in between like the workshops and the presentation sessions, and then we can develop this further. I think we need something written down.
Yeah, cool.
On this we can also like have this one PDF that's like maybe it's also on the website that like everybody can always get back to it and know what it's
exactly
about.
Cool.
Nice. Thank you so much, everybody.
It was a hard one today. It was not so conversation flowy, but I think it's okay that we have this kind of like just opening the box and see what mistakes we have to reflect on and stuff like that.
Yeah, very true.
I think it was good.
Good. The nice.
Sorry, can I ask something? At what time did you begin today?
8.
At 8? Ah, okay. I thought it started at 9.
Oh yeah, it was last time. It was 9. No. Yeah, we have to.
Probably
That's also
me to remember that.
Consistency. Consistency is very important.
Andreas, maybe just one final comment.
Let's meet for a beer here.
Yes.
I'm back at
Yeah.
Saturday.
It needs at least one session per life to meet for a beer.
Yeah, true.
I mean, when Corona ends, most probably this, I don't know if the temple still exists. Did you discuss it already?
Yeah, we will invite all the people to Hamburg then, and then we're gonna build it. And then we live there. And
Okay. Nice. Okay, I will have a visit with my bicycle.
yeah, next session we are all in the same space. Maybe Lucas can also come to the tower, and then at least 4 of us could be in the tower next Tuesday, and we could touch each other.
Nice.
Guys.
Yeah, we also want to meet for sewing next week, so maybe we could do a sewing day and then in the evening.
Nice.
We must.
Cool.
Okay, guys.
Cool. Thank all of you.
Ciao.
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 Alberto, quédate un momento. Porfa.
¿Qué pasa, Andreas?
Che, ¿qué onda con este coso, la plata?
Ya te la mandé.
No, pero me parece que no envió nada.